The Hartley estate stood like a relic of another era. Its grand arches, ivy-draped balcony, and wrought iron gates whispered stories of a family legacy built on sweat and stone. At its heart was Evelyn Hartley, 72 years old, silver hair always pinned, and eyes still sharp enough to pierce through a lie like glass. She had buried a husband, raised 3 children, survived a war, a fire, and a recession. Yet the quiet unease brewing inside her these past few weeks felt different. It began subtly. "Mom, you shouldn't be climbing ladders anymore," said Monica, the eldest, watching her mother hang spring curtains in the front room. "We can hire someone to help? Or maybe someone to stay with you full-time?" Evelyn had paused, holding the lace in mid-air. "Monica, I'm not dead. I'm decorating." Monica had smiled, but it was the kind that didn't reach the eyes. Just like Jordan, her middle son, who had started dropping by unexpectedly with grocery bags she hadn't asked for. Liam, the youngest and least confrontational, had sent her a long email about retirement resources that ended with a link to an article titled "How to Know When It's Time to Move On." Evelyn didn't need articles. She felt the shift in the air, the way her children huddled in corners whispering, how Monica had started referring to the house as the property, and how Evelyn's mail sometimes arrived already opened. She began locking her bedroom door at night. Still, Evelyn said nothing. She simply watched, observed, filed every word, every glance, every whisper into a growing archive of suspicion. They thought she was distracted, maybe even slipping. But Evelyn had once run a household with military precision. Her mind was a vault. It wasn't until she found a sealed manila envelope tucked beneath Monica's coat, labeled Hartley Power of Attorney, that her pulse truly shifted. She didn't open it, but she didn't have to. Evelyn knew when something was being planned around her instead of with her. That night, as she stood at the window overlooking her garden, the familiar warmth of the house felt suddenly hollow. The faint scent of lavender from her late husband's rose beds drifted in on the breeze, and she pressed her hand against the window pane. The house creaked, but not from age. No, it sounded like warning. "Not yet," she whispered. Her only confidant now was Nora, the housekeeper who had been with the family for over 2 decades. Nora was younger, maybe in her 50s, but loyal in the way old soldiers were. Silent, watchful, firm. Evelyn had once saved her from a messy divorce by offering her a room in the estate. Nora never forgot. "They've been meeting at that cafe on Milton Avenue," Nora murmured one morning over tea. "All 3 of them. I stayed long enough to hear facility and evaluation." Evelyn nodded. "No surprise. They want to make me disappear quietly, Nora. No fuss. Just one day I'll be gone, and my house, theirs." Nora's eyes burned. They won't win. But Evelyn knew better. The law favored the young and persuasive. All her children had to do was convince the right doctor, or pay the wrong one, and they could declare her mentally unfit. She'd heard of it before. Watched it happen to 2 women from her church. Brilliant women, packed off to elder care homes by their loving children, never to see their gardens or favorite armchairs again. Still, Evelyn didn't panic. She adjusted. She quietly began gathering her medical records. She changed her passwords. She cleared out the dusty attic where her husband had kept his safe, just in case. And at night, she began journaling in code, reviving the shorthand she once used during the war protests of the 60s. Because Evelyn Hartley wasn't just a mother. She was a survivor, and if her children wanted a war for her estate, they were about to learn exactly who they were up against. As the sun set behind the Hartley estate that evening, one light glowed in the upstairs window, Evelyn's bedroom. She stood beside it, staring into the trees beyond the gates, her silhouette still and deliberate. The house had never looked so alive. The last light had not gone out. It had only started watching back. Evelyn's children didn't strike like thunder. They crept in like fog. It started on a rainy Tuesday morning when Evelyn was sipping chamomile tea by the bay window, watching the ivy tremble along the Hartley estate's brick walls. The doorbell rang, once, sharply. By the time she reached it, Monica was already inside, drying her heels on the foyer rug as if the house were hers. "We're going to brunch," Monica said with a glossy smile. "Just you, me and the boys." Evelyn blinked. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," Monica chirped, too quickly. "Just family time." She should have known something was wrong when she noticed Nora wasn't around. Sent to the store with an unusually long list. Liam was already waiting in the car. Jordan offered his arm to escort her, something he hadn't done since her hip surgery 5 years ago. Brunch, it turned out, was a sterile room inside a downtown office suite, with stale croissants and a manila folder on the table. "This," Monica began, sliding the folder toward her, "is just a standard evaluation. Nothing invasive. Just a few questions with a specialist." "We're worried, Mom. You've been forgetful lately." "I have not," Evelyn snapped. "She left the stove on," Jordan said. "One time," Evelyn countered. "You called me Denise," Liam added. "I was reading a novel with a Denise," she shot back. But it didn't matter. They had practiced this, they had rehearsed this moment. Before she could protest further, a middle-aged man with a receding hairline and a smile too wide entered the room, introducing himself as Dr. Rupert Sayer, a geriatric wellness specialist. Evelyn could smell the lie under his cologne. His voice was gentle, his questions deceptively benign. But Evelyn knew interrogation when she saw it. She'd seen enough in her activist days during protests and hearings. "Do you ever feel unsafe in your home, Evelyn?" "No." "Have you been forgetting names or appointments?" "No." "What day is it?" "Tuesday, and I don't need a babysitter, thank you." Her children sat in quiet, manufactured concern, eyes cast down just enough to appear heartbroken. Monica even dabbed her eye once. Nothing but theater. After an hour, Dr. Sayer closed his folder, nodded solemnly, and left. Evelyn stood to go, but Jordan gently placed a hand on her arm. "There's a facility nearby," he said, "just for a short while, just until we make sure you're safe." "You don't mean safe?" Evelyn whispered. "You mean gone." "Mom, please don't be dramatic," Monica said, the mask slipping just a bit. "This is for your own good." They had already packed her things. When she returned to the estate, 2 strangers were cataloging her antiques. Monica claimed they were consultants, helping, quote, preserve her legacy. Evelyn locked herself in her bedroom that night and barely slept. The next morning, 2 attendants from the Golden Meadows Senior Wellness Center arrived with a white van and gentle hands. Nora tried to block the door. "You'll have to call the police," she told them. They did. By that afternoon, Evelyn Hartley was institutionalized. Golden Meadows was pristine and painfully quiet. It smelled of pine cleaner and silence, the kind of silence that muffled both screams and secrets. Her room overlooked a garden that looked plastic. Every hallway echoed. Every nurse smiled too much. Dr. Sayer had signed the order. Monica had assumed full legal power of attorney. Granted, Evelyn now realized, by a forged signature she could barely read under her blurry prescription lenses. Evelyn had been too trusting, too slow. They thought they had won. But Evelyn Hartley had lived through worse. And she wasn't planning on fading into some pastel-colored purgatory while her daughters sold off her estate, piece by piece. Within days, she had memorized the staff schedules. She watched which nurses hovered too long by the medication carts and which patients suddenly stopped receiving visitors. She noted who flinched when she asked questions and which cameras blinked with unusual rhythms. Evelyn didn't protest or panic. She observed. And she planned. On her 3rd day, she met her new roommate, Faye, thin and wild-eyed, muttering nonsense to the walls by daylight, but humming jazz standards flawlessly at midnight. The staff called her senile. Evelyn wasn't so sure. One night, as Evelyn lay in the dark, Faye whispered across the room, "You're not like the others. You're still dangerous." Evelyn's eyes opened. Faye continued, "They think we forget, but I remember everything. especially the ones who vanish. That night, Evelyn knew she hadn't been sent here to be cared for. She'd been buried alive. The Hartley estate had never known such cold laughter. It rang through the once hallowed halls like glass cracking under weight, sharp, brittle, and utterly joyless. Monica stood in the foyer, clipboard in hand, surveying the place like a developer at a demolition site. She wore a sleek black dress and heels that echoed against the marbled floors. The grand chandelier, Evelyn's pride and joy, glittered above her, oblivious to its imminent fate. "We'll list the baccarat crystal on Tuesday," she said to Jordan, who leaned against the door frame with a half-empty glass of scotch and a grimace that passed for a smile. "You know Mom would lose it if she saw you selling off her antiques," he muttered, swirling his drink. Monica didn't flinch. "That's the thing, Jordan. She's not seeing anything. She's in a 5-star facility with a lake view and daily massages. What she remembers or not is irrelevant now." Jordan took a long sip, as if trying to drown the guilt clinging to the edges of his conscience. He had always been the middle child, malleable, morally flexible, willing to defer to Monica's stronger will. But something in his eyes suggested this was going further than he expected. "Liam's late again," Monica muttered. Typical. Liam did eventually show, shuffling in with sleeves rolled, guilt practically stitched into his posture. He carried a box of Evelyn's old books, clearly untouched, clearly hers. As he placed it on the dining room table, he glanced at a faded photograph still framed above the fireplace. Evelyn and their father, standing in front of the house when it was still under construction. Her eyes shone in that photo. Now the image stared back at him like a judgment. "You know this doesn't feel right," Liam said softly. Monica sighed. "We've been through this." She was evaluated, legally declared unfit. "By a doctor you hired." Monica's smile twisted. "Don't pretend you're innocent. You signed the power of attorney paperwork just like we did." "I didn't read it. I trusted you." "Then that's on you." The estate was being dismantled with surgical cruelty. Family heirlooms were photographed, catalogued, appraised. The grandfather clock Evelyn's grandfather had brought from Vienna was wheeled out by men in gloves. Her jewelry, collected over a lifetime of anniversaries and quiet victories, was spread across a velvet cloth for valuation. But it wasn't just possessions being sold, it was memory, identity, dignity. Each item carried a story: the hand-carved oak chair from her wedding, the pressed flower keepsake from her honeymoon, the faded quilt stitched during her first pregnancy. And yet to Monica, they were only numbers in a spreadsheet. She had debts, deep, snarling ones, buried under a luxury lifestyle she could no longer afford. Evelyn's house was not a home. It was collateral. The worst insult came 2 days later, when Monica ordered the removal of Evelyn's bedroom furniture to stage the room for a potential buyer. That same evening, a realtor walked through the estate with clients, commenting on the character of the crown moldings and the potential of converting the West Library into a wine cellar. Meanwhile, Evelyn sat in Golden Meadows, unaware of each violation, but not for long. Nora had been fired under the pretense of unauthorized interference, but not before smuggling a burner phone into Evelyn's belongings, hidden inside a hollowed-out edition of Pride and Prejudice. When Evelyn found it and opened the photos Nora had uploaded, she stared in frozen silence. Pictures of her parlor stripped bare, her jewelry laid out for sale, her garden trampled by movers, her bedroom gone. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat very still and whispered, "So this is what betrayal looks like." That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She walked the halls of Golden Meadows instead, invisible in her silence, listening to doors creak open and close, watching nurses move with shadows in their wake. And she made herself a promise. "They may have taken my house, but they haven't taken my mind. They haven't taken me." Back at the estate, Monica raised a toast to herself as the listing went live online. She imagined buyers lining up, profits soaring, debts dissolving. But upstairs, in a dusty corner of the attic Monica hadn't bothered to explore, something watched her. Hidden in the paneling, a backup copy of Evelyn's original will. Sealed, untouched, undiscovered, and waiting. Golden Meadows was clean. That was the first thing Evelyn noticed. Not just tidy, but unnaturally pristine. Everything from the flower arrangements to the color-coded schedules seemed curated to pacify, to distract. The halls were painted soft beige and sage green, colors designed to calm the eye. There was classical music playing faintly through overhead speakers, punctuated every so often by a patient's muffled cough or the distant mechanical beep of a vitals monitor. But Evelyn didn't trust the quiet. Not anymore. On her fifth night, sleep was elusive. Her thoughts tangled like overgrown vines, visions of Monica smiling while she sold her pearls, Jordan lounging with a whiskey glass, Liam glancing down in shame. Evelyn turned toward the room's second bed, where a frail figure stirred beneath the covers. Her roommate was a woman in her late 70s, perhaps early 80s, with wild gray hair and a twitch in her left eye. The staff had introduced her briskly as Faye Bellamy, and warned Evelyn not to worry if she, quote, talked nonsense sometimes. During the day, Faye was practically catatonic, silent, distant, her gaze drifting out the window or fixed on something Evelyn couldn't see. But at night, she changed. It started with humming. Low, tuneful phrases, jazz standards, mostly, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday. Even a few protest songs Evelyn hadn't heard since the 70s. That particular night, Evelyn spoke. "You like music, don't you?" Faye stopped humming mid-note. Then she chuckled, dry, knowing. "You finally decided to talk," Faye said, her voice rasping like old paper. "I've been watching," Evelyn replied carefully. "You're not half as confused as they say." Faye turned her head and locked eyes with Evelyn. What Evelyn saw there startled her, clarity sharp as broken glass. "You're right," Faye whispered. "They think I'm crazy. It keeps me safe." Evelyn's instincts fired instantly. "Safe from what?" Faye sat up slowly, pushing aside her blanket. Her face was pale, hollowed with time and worry, but her eyes, those eyes were awake, alert. "There's something wrong in this place," she said. "People vanish." Evelyn's body stiffened. "What do you mean?" "Discharges that don't exist. Patients who just stopped showing up to meals. One woman, Estelle, had a daughter who came daily. Then one day, nothing. Staff said she moved facilities. The daughter? She left a voicemail crying, saying no one will tell her where her mother is." "Did anyone investigate?" Faye let out a bitter laugh. "I was a reporter once. Investigative? Covered political scandals, pharmaceutical fraud, even uncovered an assisted living embezzlement ring back in 92. But no one believes a woman who confuses the shower for a phone 3 times a week." Evelyn leaned in. "So which one is it? Confused or brilliant?" Faye smirked. "Both. That's how you survive in here." The next morning, Faye returned to her dazed, slow-moving self. The transformation was jarring. Her nighttime clarity vanished like mist in sunlight. Nurses called her Sweet Faye, patted her shoulder, ignored her gibberish. Evelyn watched closely, taking notes in her head. By the end of the week, Evelyn began noticing what Faye hinted at. Subtle discrepancies. One patient, Mr. Donnelly, was absent from breakfast for 3 days. A nurse said he was, quote, transferred for rehabilitation. But when Evelyn asked another staff member, they claimed he'd had a stroke and was, quote, in memory care. 2 stories, both vague, neither confirmed. His room? Already assigned to someone new. Another woman, Rosa, cried uncontrollably during group therapy. The next day, she was gone. The official story? Family pickup. But Evelyn never saw a single relative visit her. The pattern was becoming undeniable. That evening, Evelyn whispered to Faye, "Why are they disappearing?" Faye stared up at the ceiling. "Because someone here profits from silence." And then she said something that chilled Evelyn to the core. "They're not here to care for us. They're here to outlast us." That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She replayed Faye's words again and again. Were the disappearances intentional, Was it negligence? Abuse? Something worse? She needed help, but not from inside the facility. She needed someone who could move between roles. Someone inside the system, but not loyal to it. Someone like the scar-faced nurse who'd been giving the wrong pills to the right people and pretending it was a mistake. Her name was Lena, and she had secrets written in her eyes. And Evelyn Hartley? She was done playing the role of passive patient. In Golden Meadows, most nurses were interchangeable. Kind smiles, stiff routines, and eyes that never stayed on one patient too long. But Lena was different. She was younger than most, maybe late 30s, with cropped auburn hair and a jagged scar along her jaw that drew whispers from both patients and staff. She moved with the practiced confidence of someone who didn't fear authority, but also didn't invite attention. She barely spoke. She worked quickly, quietly, and Evelyn noticed, without ever looking over her shoulder, and that made her dangerous. Evelyn first took notice during a medication round. Lena came into the room with her tray like every other nurse, but when she passed Faye her evening pills, Evelyn caught the flash of hesitation. It was only a second. Lena glanced at the label, then at Faye, then quickly substituted one small white pill for another. The action was subtle, even artful. But Evelyn was watching. Faye swallowed the pills without noticing. Lena turned to Evelyn next, offering her the tiny plastic cup with practiced indifference. Evelyn didn't drink. "I'll take them later," she said evenly. "You know the rules," Lena replied, voice low. Evelyn held her gaze. "I also know what you just did." Lena's eyes flicked back to her. For the first time, the mask slipped. "You don't know anything." "Oh, I know when someone's lying," Evelyn said. "I had 3 children. One became a lawyer." A tense beat passed. Then Lena took a step back, lowering her voice to a whisper. "Keep your voice down." "Or what? You'll make me disappear like Mr. Donnelly? Or Estelle?" Lena's expression hardened. She glanced at the door. "Be very careful what you say in this place." "You should be the one being careful," Evelyn said, "because I'm not as alone as I look." That night, Lena returned long after lights out. She entered the room in silence, her rubber soles muffled against the linoleum floor. Faye was snoring softly. Evelyn was wide awake. Lena sat on the edge of her bed and said, without preamble, "It's not what you think." "No?" Evelyn said, sitting up. "Because it looks like you're switching pills. And last week, I saw you dispose of a med tray without marking it." "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," Lena said. "I'm trying to keep them alive." Silence stretched between them. Then Lena continued, lower now. "There are patients here on drug trials, unmarked, unauthorized. They're using people like test subjects, confused, forgotten people with no advocates. It's not just this facility, it's bigger than that." "Who's they?" "I don't know all of them. Admin, maybe some of the doctors. Someone from a pharma company, I think. They pay us bonuses to keep our mouths shut. The pills. They're mood stabilizers, memory suppressants, sometimes placebos. Some are dangerous." "And the scar?" Evelyn asked quietly. Lena touched her jaw unconsciously. "That came later. When I tried to report something a year ago. The man who gave it to me got, quote, transferred. I got reassigned and was told I could either play nice or lose everything." Evelyn studied her. "So why not leave?" "I owe my brother's insurance, my mother's nursing bills. I can't afford to quit. But I can't keep pretending either." "You're in the perfect place to help," Evelyn said. "You have access. You can get into files, closets, records. You see everything." Lena shook her head. "And what are you going to do? Post about it on your blog from a lockdown senior ward?" Evelyn smiled. "Who said I don't already have a plan?" And then, slowly, she reached beneath her mattress and pulled out the burner phone Nora had smuggled in. She unlocked it and showed Lena a folder titled Patient Notes, photos of paperwork, medication labels, staff rosters, meal schedules, even recorded conversations. Lena stared. "You're already building a case," she whispered. "I just needed someone to help me go deeper," Evelyn said. Another long pause. Then Lena reached into her scrub pocket and pulled out a key. "I'll get you into the nurse's station file cabinet tomorrow night. 10 minutes max. After that, you're on your own." "I won't be," Evelyn said. "Not anymore." From her bed, Faye stirred but didn't wake. Still, Evelyn noticed her lips twitch, as if forming words even in sleep. Outside the room, the hall remained quiet, but the war had begun, and Evelyn Hartley had just recruited her first soldier. By the end of her second week inside Golden Meadows, Evelyn Hartley was no longer just a patient. She was an insurgent. What had started as quiet suspicion had now matured into an operation with moving parts, hidden codes, and a sense of mission. Operation Lady Justice, she named it, a tribute to her late husband's favorite phrase, "Justice is only blind when people close her eyes." Lena became her conduit, reluctant at first, but increasingly bold. Each night, she smuggled new bits of information. A flash drive copied from the facility server, a hard copy of patient schedules marked with redacted notes, even shredded files she carefully reassembled like puzzles on Evelyn's bedside tray. What Evelyn didn't decipher herself, Faye sometimes helped translate, when her clarity returned at night like moonlight through a cloudy sky. And Evelyn? Evelyn had found her old rhythm. Back in the 80s, she had run an underground newspaper for city workers, protesting gender discrimination. She knew how to lay low, how to pass notes without detection, how to encrypt her phone in 3 layers of password disguises. She even brought back her activist alias from that era, E.H. Quill, a ghost online, untraceable. She had not forgotten. Every night she uploaded new files to a hidden folder on the dark web, using hospital Wi-Fi. She didn't yet know who would see it, but she had faith someone would. The truth had weight, even if it took time to land. Still, danger was closing in. One afternoon, Evelyn watched a nurse wheel a patient, Rosa, the crying woman from group therapy, toward the east wing. The hallway she was taken through had no exit. Just a closed wing of the building the staff called storage overflow. Rosa never returned. That same evening, Evelyn opened a new video file Lena had secretly recorded. It showed Dr. Caldwell, the head administrator, meeting with a man in a business suit inside his office. They discussed med dosage rotations and patient turnover efficiency in tones that suggested numbers, not lives. Evelyn paused the video, replayed the phrase, "We need to shorten their shelf life." Her stomach turned. "This isn't just fraud," she told Lena later. "This is a human experiment. A corporate machine feeding on silence." Lena's eyes flickered with fear. "You don't know how deep this goes?" "No," Evelyn said firmly. "But we're going to find out." They started mapping out the entire system. Who was complicit, who was indifferent, and who could be flipped. The cleaning staff, it turned out, knew more than they admitted. One janitor named Miguel often whistled nervously when he passed certain rooms, always avoiding eye contact near the east wing. Evelyn flagged him as a potential informant. Meanwhile, Evelyn began documenting the vanishing patients. She created a chart, hung discreetly on the back of a framed painting in her room. Dates. Names. Alleged, quote, transfers. Real or imagined family visits. Discrepancies between shift reports. One name stood out, Estelle Jennings, the woman Faye had mentioned on their first night together. Her file had been deleted from the system. "I knew it," Faye murmured, lucid again as she helped Evelyn scan a list of employee codes. "She never left this place." "But they erased her," Evelyn whispered. "Then we unerase her." The risk level rose every night. Lena reported rumors that someone in admin suspected a leak. One orderly had been fired without warning. Another was reassigned and never seen again. Dr. Caldwell began inspecting rooms more often. Even Evelyn's drawer was opened one day without explanation. though the burner phone remained tucked safely in a hollowed-out Bible beneath the bed. Then, a chilling sign. A slip of paper appeared on Evelyn's nightstand. No one saw who left it. On it was typed, "We know what you're doing. Stop, or you'll be transferred too." Evelyn didn't flinch. She folded the note and tucked it into her coated journal. At breakfast, she sat beside a nurse who wasn't Lena, smiled sweetly and asked, "Have you seen Dr. Caldwell today? I have a few questions about patient protocols." The nurse flinched. That was all Evelyn needed. Operation Lady Justice wasn't just a plan anymore, it was a countdown. And once Evelyn had all the pieces, she wouldn't just leak the story, she'd bury them with it. The east wing of Golden Meadows was silent in a way that made the skin crawl. No nurses bustled through its halls. No TVs murmured behind patient doors. No bingo cards. No laughter. It was too clean. Too still. Like a photograph of a hallway, not a real one. Evelyn had passed it twice now. Always during Lena's late-night shift while escorted to the supply closet. But she'd never dared step beyond the threshold. Not yet. But the answers were behind that hallway. That she was sure of now. They came closer when the janitor finally cracked. His name was Earl Rudd, a man of about 60 with a bent back, sagging face, and a limp that came from, quote, "a fall they never let me report," as he later told Evelyn. For weeks, Earl had avoided her eyes, barely nodding when she greeted him. But on a rainy Thursday morning, he dropped a folded slip of paper into her lap during breakfast cleanup. "Garden, tonight, 11:15, don't bring anyone." Evelyn knew the risk. It smelled like a trap. But she also knew what fear looked like, and Earl had worn it like a second skin. That kind of fear didn't lie. It leaked. That night, she slipped out beneath the soft blanket of darkness, careful not to alert Lena or Faye. Outside, the garden gleamed under security lights. Manicured, quiet, performative. Earl was already there, pacing by the stone bench near the lilies. He looked like a man ready to vomit. "They'll fire me for this," he muttered before she even reached him. "Only if you speak too softly," Evelyn said. He rubbed a trembling hand through thinning hair. "I thought it was just poor management at first. You know, cutting corners, bad records. But it's worse. I've seen things." "Like what?" Earl glanced around, leaned in. "Patients, transferred in the middle of the night. No paperwork, no family notified. And the rooms? They're cleaned top to bottom before morning like nobody was ever there. I stopped asking questions when they moved Estelle. The day before, she was due to see her daughter. She cried all afternoon. Next morning, gone." Evelyn swallowed hard. "Where do they go?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I've heard rumors from the kitchen staff. Some of the patients end up in hospice beds with different names. Others, I think, they're used for tests. They vanish into the East Wing and that's it. I once found a bracelet, Estelle's, in the trash behind the wing, with blood on it." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Earl laughed bitterly. "I did. 3 months ago. Know what they did? Sent over a representative from the corporate board. Next day, my locker was emptied, my time card changed, and my calls stopped going through. I got a warning in writing. Violation of privacy policies. They made it look like I was the problem." Evelyn felt it click into place. The disappearances, the fabricated records, the immunity. This wasn't just a facility with lazy oversight. This was a network. Somewhere between the administrators, the pharmaceutical reps, and the health board connections, there was a protected pipeline. Earl reached into his coat and handed her a flash drive, wrapped in a napkin. Footage from the night they moved Estelle. Security cameras don't catch everything, but I patched it together from backups. You didn't get this from me. Evelyn closed her fingers around it. "Why now?" His voice cracked. "Because I saw my name on a list today. A rotation list. And I've never been rotated in 7 years. I think they know I saw too much. You need to disappear before they make you vanish." He nodded. "I'm calling my sister tonight. She lives in Vermont. I'm leaving before Monday. But you finish what I couldn't." Back inside, Evelyn slid the flash drive into her burner phone and opened the files. Her heart sank. There it was, grainy footage of Estelle being wheeled down the east hallway at 2:47 a.m., flanked by 2 staff members wearing no badges. One carried a sealed duffel bag. The lights flickered. The camera cut out. When the feed resumed, the hallway was empty. Estelle was gone. The timestamp never lied. The next morning, Evelyn woke Faye gently and showed her the footage. "They erased her," she said softly. Faye stared at the screen, eyes shining with a mix of rage and vindication. "Then we erased them." Lena knocked 5 minutes later, her face pale. "You need to see this," she said, handing Evelyn a crumpled document. It was an internal memo, marked confidential, with a single chilling line circled in red ink. Subject: Hartley. Prepare for transfer. Date: TBD. Evelyn looked up slowly. She had become the next ghost in the machine. There was a difference between being silenced and choosing when to speak. Evelyn Hartley had waited long enough. The footage of Estelle's disappearance, the whistleblower memo about her own pending transfer, and the flash drive of redacted files were damning enough. But Evelyn knew evidence meant nothing without exposure, and she didn't have the luxury of more time. Not after seeing her name circled like a corpse on a corporate form. So she made her move. With Lena's help and Earl's footage, Evelyn crafted a short, tightly edited video. No dramatics. No shaky accusations. Just facts. Timestamps, paper trails, suspicious transfers, and footage of patients being wheeled into the East Wing and never seen again. She masked her identity behind the alias E.H. Quill, embedded it with metadata, and uploaded it to 4 different whistleblower sites and 2 news forums with the subject line, "Golden Meadows is a lie, elder abuse covered by corporate medicine." Then she waited. By noon the next day, the video had over 10,000 views. By evening, it had made the rounds on 2 local news websites. By nightfall, Evelyn saw a headline scroll across the communal television screen. Investigation launched into alleged elder mistreatment at Golden Meadows. And Evelyn smiled, for the first time in weeks. But her victory didn't last. Because Monica saw it too. The next morning, Golden Meadows staff descended like hornets. Evelyn's room was searched, her belongings stripped. The burner phone, hidden beneath her mattress, was gone. Lena was nowhere to be found. Faye was heavily sedated, unresponsive. And Evelyn? She was summoned to the quiet room, an interview chamber that smelled like lemon cleaner and antiseptic panic. Dr. Caldwell sat across from her, flanked by 2 facility lawyers. "Mrs. Hartley," he began coolly, "we're concerned about your mental health." Evelyn leaned back, unimpressed. "How original." Caldwell smiled, too pleased. "Your daughter Monica has submitted an updated psychiatric evaluation, signed by an independent physician. It recommends immediate mental health intervention and outlines symptoms of acute paranoia and digital delusions." Evelyn's heart thumped, but her face showed nothing. She also provided this. He slid a tablet toward her. On the screen was a new video, Monica's voice, syrupy sweet, carefully controlled. "My mother is a brilliant woman, but she's been struggling. She believes she's uncovering a conspiracy here. But the truth is, she's scared, confused, and manipulated by unstable people inside the home. Please don't share that viral video. It only spreads her pain." Evelyn stared. Monica had turned her exposure into a narrative. A clever one. Painting Evelyn as a tragic, unraveling matriarch caught in delusions of grandeur. Her online alias had been traced. Her voice, run through voice-matching tools, had been confirmed. Now, Monica was feeding the media a counter-story, a loving daughter trying to protect her sick mother from herself, and worst of all, people were believing her. That evening, back in her room, Evelyn sat in silence. Faye dozed beside her, coming down from another dose of something far too strong. Lena had still not reappeared. The walls seemed to hum with tension. Her video had stirred a storm, but now Monica had hijacked the narrative, spun it into a performance. One Evelyn couldn't challenge without appearing exactly as Monica described her. Paranoid, fragile, unwell. The door creaked open. It was Liam. Not Staff, not Monica. Just Liam. He looked older, more tired. Not like the boy who once helped her build a treehouse or cried when they lost their dog. He carried a brown paper bag and a silence that felt different. "I had to sneak in," he said. "They said family visits were suspended during the investigation." Evelyn didn't say anything. She didn't trust it yet. Liam placed the bag on the table. "Inside is a backup copy of your video. And this." He slid a folded letter across the table. Evelyn opened it slowly. It was from Lena. "They're watching me. I had to disappear for a while, but I'm safe. For now. Liam found me. He believes you. And I've got more. Hang on, Evelyn. We're not done yet." Evelyn's hands trembled. Not with fear, but with fuel. Lena was alive, and she was still in the fight. Liam spoke, softer now. "I know I helped Monica. I was scared. But seeing what you uncovered, what they're doing, I had to choose. I choose you." Evelyn looked up, eyes burning. "You picked the right side. Now help me burn the rest down." They had tried to silence her. They stripped her room, drugged her friends, erased her files, and twisted her story into one of pity and decline. But Evelyn Hartley had lived through childbirth, bankruptcy, the death of a husband, and the betrayal of her own blood. A smear campaign? That was nothing. It took 3 days to reassemble what she'd lost. The burner phone was gone, yes, but Liam brought her another. Lena's letter had included a memory stick, this one even more damning than the first. Unedited footage of a patient being sedated against their will. Prescription logs that didn't match administration records. A folder marked trial candidates, with names, drug dosages, and not a single signed consent form. Evelyn sat at the desk in the library of Golden Meadows, pretending to read a large print novel, while uploading it all to a new secure server Liam had helped her set up. Then she sent it to 10 news stations, to 3 watchdog groups, to an anonymous source Faye remembered from her journalism days, still active, still dangerous. And this time, she didn't wait. The firestorm hit within hours. It began with a single tweet, an independent journalist breaking the story with the headline, "Elderly Woman Leaks Shocking Abuse Footage from Inside Luxury Care Facility." The video went viral overnight. By morning, Evelyn's face was on national news. Not just E.H. Quill, but Evelyn Hartley, 72, widow, retired teacher, unlawfully institutionalized, and now whistleblower. The footage played on loop. Residents being wheeled into the East Wing and never seen again. Falsified death certificates. Lists of high-risk patients targeted for pharmaceutical testing. Anchors called it Golden Meadow Gate. Public outrage was immediate, and it was thunderous. People began sharing their own stories of relatives lost in the elder care system. Hashtags trended. Hashtag Believe Evelyn. Hashtag Not Just Golden Meadows. Hashtag Silent Screams of the Elderly. The facility went into lockdown. Reporters flooded the gates. Staff were instructed not to speak to media. Dr. Caldwell was placed on administrative leave within 24 hours. Police arrived to conduct what they called a standard procedural sweep. But the image of officers entering the pristine lobby with crime scene kits was plastered on every screen in America. In her room, Evelyn watched it unfold. She wasn't triumphant, she was focused. Because she knew what came next. Monica's counterstrike. And sure enough, Monica appeared on television that same evening. She wore muted tones, with carefully understated makeup, the picture of grieving dignity. "My mother is not well," she said, voice trembling. "She believes she's protecting others. but she's being manipulated. She has a history of paranoid delusions. She used to think the neighbors were spying on her through the mail slot. This isn't justice. It's exploitation. She wiped away a tear on cue. Please, let her heal. Let her come home. This isn't who she is. It was a masterclass in performative sympathy. But this time, America wasn't buying it. Because by then, Lena had come forward. She appeared on a live stream, face blurred, voice altered, but every word laced with steel. Everything Evelyn said is true. I worked there. I saw the testing, the bribes, the disappearances. And I stayed quiet too long. When the interviewer asked why she was speaking out now, Lena didn't hesitate. Because Evelyn reminded me that silence is a choice. And I won't be complicit another day. From that moment, the media tide broke wide open. Class action lawsuits poured in. The pharmaceutical company behind the unapproved drug trials issued a shaky denial, then went radio silent. The board of Golden Meadows was subpoenaed. State regulators launched a full investigation. Every inch of the East Wing was sealed off for forensic review. Patients' families who had been given transfer notices began demanding proof of where their loved ones were. Some couldn't be accounted for. Those names became headlines. And Evelyn became a hero. 1 week later, she was released, not by the facility, but by court order, pushed through by a civil rights attorney who took her case for free, calling it the most egregious abuse of power I've ever seen. Evelyn didn't cry when she left. She walked out of Golden Meadows wearing her late husband's wool coat and a quiet, ironclad smile. Cameras swarmed. Microphones were shoved into her face. Reporters shouted questions. Evelyn, how do you feel? What's next for you? Do you have a message for other families? She paused at the top step, looked directly into the nearest camera, and said, Don't wait until they silence you. Scream while you still can. And then she walked away. Toward home. Or so she thought. Because waiting at the gates of the Hartley estate was a man in a gray suit, with a deed in hand, and a name she hadn't heard in over 40 years. Evelyn had imagined the moment 1,000 ways. Returning to the Hartley estate, walking up the curved stone path her husband built with his bare hands, brushing her fingers along the weather-worn porch railing, unlocking the front door with a familiar click. She never imagined being stopped at the gate. The reporters had followed her all the way from Golden Meadows, but their questions faded as a gray-suited man stepped forward, his presence sharp and dispassionate. He wasn't a journalist. He was holding a file folder, and in his hand, a set of keys. Mrs. Hartley? He asked. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. Who's asking? My name is Oliver Vance. I represent a private estate trust. I'm here regarding the property behind you. That's my home, she said, her voice flat. I lived there for over 4 decades. My husband built it. Vance opened the folder and carefully pulled out a yellowed deed, laminated and marked with 2 government seals. Your husband did build it, he agreed. But according to this document, he never put the deed in your name, or in his own. Evelyn blinked. What? This house was placed in trust under the name of one Margaret Hale, established in 1983. Your husband signed the transfer just 6 months before his accident. Evelyn felt the world shift beneath her feet. That's impossible. He bought this land with money from his father's inheritance. We had a joint account. Why would he? Because Margaret Hale, Vance said gently, was the legal name of someone connected to your husband before he met you. A rustle of leaves interrupted the silence. A car pulled into the driveway. From it stepped a tall, silver-haired woman in a long black coat. Her eyes were sharp. Familiar. She looked about Faye's age but moved like someone with unfinished business. Evelyn's heart stumbled. Do I know you? The woman gave a small, bitter smile. You should. My name is Genevieve Hale. Margaret was my sister. Evelyn went pale. Genevieve continued, voice unwavering. Your husband, Thomas, promised this house to her. They were engaged, but he left her. Without warning. For you. Evelyn's breath caught. No, that's not true. He told me he was single. That he'd never... He lied, Genevieve said, to both of you. When he died, the trust passed to Margaret, but she was too sick to fight. She died 5 years ago. I've been tracking this case ever since. You were never the legal owner. Evelyn staggered, clutching the cold metal fence for support. But I paid for repairs. I kept it standing. You lived here, Genevieve acknowledged. You built a life. But legally, it was never yours. The trust has now passed to me. Evelyn didn't speak. She couldn't. The reporters began to murmur. Some lifted cameras. But no one stepped in. No one dared interrupt the weight of what had just been dropped. The house, her sanctuary, her battleground, the last piece of Thomas she clung to, was never really hers. And all the while she fought her children, the facility, the system, someone else had been quietly, legally waiting in the shadows. Watching. Genevieve stepped closer, softened just slightly. I'm not here to evict you, she said. Not today. I just thought you deserved the truth. And maybe, one day, we can decide what to do with it. Together. Evelyn looked up, her voice a whisper. Why now? Genevieve's gaze flicked to the cameras, the journalists, the headlines still fresh. Because the whole world just watched you burn an empire to the ground with nothing but your voice, and I wanted to see the woman who did that before the lawyers arrived. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Evelyn in stunned silence. That night, Evelyn sat in a small rental apartment, far from the grand staircase, the velvet drapes, the scent of cedarwood polish. She brewed her tea the old-fashioned way, curled her fingers around the mug, and stared at the wall for a long time. The truth was heavy. But it didn't crush her, because she had something no one could take. Her story. The next morning, she typed the first lines of her memoir. They forced me into elder care to seize a house that was never legally mine. But what they didn't know was that I would find something far more valuable on the other side: justice, power, and myself. The book would become a bestseller. Golden Meadows would shutter within 6 months. Lena would testify before Congress. Faye, finally lucid, would become Evelyn's co-author. And the Hartley estate? Well, that chapter wasn't closed just yet.